Hello and welcome back to CHGO, where quite simply the Chicago Bulls sing. This podcast is part of the Fans First Sports Network, so wherever you're listening, rate, review, subscribe, helps us out and ensures you don't miss another episode. And if you're watching on YouTube, make sure you hit the bell, give us a thumbs up, and why not leave some comments down below as well. I'm Matt, and as usual, joined by Neill. How are we doing, Neill?
I'm good, thank you very much. Looking forward to what we've got coming tonight.
Yeah, before we get into it, it's another pre-recorded chat that we're going to throw in a minute. This time it is with Matt Peck of CHGO.
Yeah.
Before we throw it to that, a bit of latest news. Not a lot. Some probably say it's not actually news, but Bulls did announce last week that they have signed Henry Drell to a training camp contract.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, spent the last 2 years with Windy City and done the last 2 summer leagues with Chicago as well. That's probably where he's going to be in it. It's basically getting the numbers up in it, giving them a bit of a competitive workout in training camp, really. You know, personally, I like it. I like Henry Drell from watching him with Windy City in summer league. You know, big wing that can occasionally hit the three. And I think he's only about 23 as well. And obviously, he's in Chicago's system, which doesn't necessarily mean he's going to stay in it.
No.
But there's obviously a reason why they keep bringing him back. So, who knows? Even if it is just for Windy City. Other bit of news, obviously, a bit of a change in squad numbers last week. Went from Julian Phillips, who was going to be 13, he's now going to be 15, and Torrey Craig is going to take the 13, which you do bring up with Mr. Peck.
Yeah.
And Adama Sanogo, obviously on the two-way, is going to wear the 21 previously worn by Mr. Patrick Beverley. So, yeah, that's pretty much it for Bulls news, isn't it?
That's it. It's pretty thin on the ground.
There's been a few other articles by whoever, ESPN, Hoops, Hype, whoever, basically putting Bulls bottom of everything as usual, but can't bother talking about them. It's all crap. So, yeah, before we throw it to Peck, I'll do the ad read for our partners at USA Sports. USA Sports is a UK-based sports merchandise retailer. They cover the NBA, NHL, NFL, MLB, as well as Formula One. So from hats to hoodies, there's something for everyone. From Chicago Bulls to Team Red Bull and everywhere in between. Check them out on all the socials, where they're running some new Fan of the Month type things as well. And also check the website, usasports.co.uk. And at checkout, enter the code CREDUK for 15% off. And if you do put some pictures up, make sure you enter into the Fan of the Month competition. Welcome back to CHGO podcast, and it's another welcome back to Matt Peck of CHGO Bulls. How are we doing, Matt?
Neill, Matt, so happy to be with you guys. I miss you. I feel like Paris was way too long ago.
Definitely.
Yeah, well, I mean, you're our third returning guest now, behind Tim Sinclair and Big Dave. So, you're in good.
I feel like I do not deserve to be in that recurring guests club.
No, you're in the elite group now. You're in that elite group. You can't lose that status.
Oh, I won't. Trust me. I'll hold on to it.
Well, being as competitive as you are, you can always be our third-time guest.
Any time you invite Big Dave to come on again before inviting me to come on again, I will completely understand.
Just quickly before Neill goes into his bit on Big Dave, is he doing all right? Is he? He's still off with his COVID?
Yeah, we were chatting yesterday a little bit. He's feeling better. He was actually scheduled to be off our shows this week. He and the GOAT and I all kind of took turns taking some PTO here at the end of the offseason when things are kind of calm and we could get by with 2 of the 3 of us. So it was Big Dave's turn to have vacation this week anyway. So my hope is that he's at least getting to enjoy his vacation because he's mostly recovered from his bout with COVID. But Big Dave, you can't keep that guy down for more than 5 minutes.
No.
Still pretty positive about having COVID then.
Yeah.
Okay, so I suppose you've had kind of a bit of a disappointing start to the sporting season with the Bears. Myself and Matt don't really follow football, but we still listen to what you guys to be saying and put up on Twitter. So we're kind of hoping that the Bulls turn that around a little bit for you, because at the moment the Blackhawks is not enough to hang on to, right? So what we're kind of guessing, I know we asked you this last year. We asked you about the hat count and what you'd expect the hat count to be. We won't get into too much detail, but what I was wondering was, you should think about setting something up so that you actually have a target, and you should tally how many points you can get for the season with each hat throw.
That's a pretty good idea.
Yeah.
So like when we're in the studio and I'm throwing my hats, my usual target is just the open doorway of one of our bosses, Kevin Kadick's office. Shout out to Kevin. He's the head of content at CHGO. And his office is just off to the stage right of our Studio A set. And most often his doorway is open. And so if I get just enough English and a flick of the wrist on my hat, I can sometimes get it through that threshold of his doorway and into his office. And when I get those throws, I feel like I really just like threw like an 80-yard touchdown bomb. I feel really good about it. But yeah, through the first 2 weeks of the Bears season, my Bears hats have taken a beating. And yeah, I fortunately have been in the privacy of my own home, and then I watched at my brother's place in week 1. So it's not like I was embarrassing myself in public, but yeah, I beat the crap out of my Bears hats for the first 2 weeks of that season.
You mentioned Paris as well. Obviously, that was great for us. We got to go over finally. Once we got our tickets, we managed to get over and see the game and meet up with you guys. Get to see you do your thing, and even had a bit of involvement. Shot a few hoops. It was great. But Paris for us, obviously, it was Matt's first time seeing the Bulls live. I'd seen them before in the UC and in London, but it was your first time doing something too, right? It was your first time meeting Joakim Noah.
It was my first time in Paris, so I was obviously super excited to be traveling internationally. It was my first international trip after the COVID, shut down the world for a while there. So I was so excited to get to take the trip, and to get to take that trip not only with my amazing, friends and colleagues at CHGO Bulls, getting to do that trip with Big Dave, Will, Joey, and our guy RG from over in DNVR, who came to document the whole trip. And did an incredible job, but also getting to see you guys and other, see Jimmy from UK Chicago Bulls, and meet some of our other international fellow Bulls fans and people who enjoy our content from overseas. And it was so cool to do that in a city like Paris. I like every hour of that trip, Dave and I would just kind of like look at each other and be like, dude, what? How are we here? How are we here? This is ridiculous. And it's so cool. And obviously, yes, the cherry on top of that incredible trip, experiencing something that monumental with our fellow Bulls fans was selfishly, yes, finally getting to meet one of my favorite Bulls heroes, Joakim Noah.
Yeah. So, I mean, you talk about us being in the wrong place. We mentioned it before we started recording, being in the UK and Ireland. But I mean, it took you going to Paris to meet your hero who played for Chicago.
I know. I had to fly across the Atlantic Ocean to finally get my chance at meeting Joakim. And it's funny, our pal Jimmy flew over to have his first trip in Chicago, experiencing what it's like to go to the United States. And that's where he ended up meeting Joakim, because Joakim was at the UC one of the nights when Jimmy went to one of those games. So totally random how that, worked out the way it did. Fortunately, I've been able to cross paths with Joe a couple times since then. We at CHGO have been trying to get the word out with this new charity event he's doing in Chicago, the One City Basketball Tournament for the youth of the city. And I've gotten the chance to chat with him a few more times, covering that and helping them share the wonderful things they're doing. So we are still targeting eventually getting Joakim Noah to sit down in studio with us at CHGO. And that's hopefully going to happen sometime in the not too distant future. And I'm sure that I will be struggling to contain my absolute childish glee if and when that day comes.
You're going to be like a puddle of jello sitting in the seat.
I will have a complete moment of utter disbelief where I step outside my body and look at what's happening and be like, you're hosting a Bulls show and Joakim Noah is sitting in a chair right over there on set talking about the Bulls. I will. If that happens, I still will not believe that it's happening. Just like I didn't believe it was happening when I met Joakim in Paris.
Yeah, and just obviously on Paris, obviously you've spent time living in London and stuff like that before. Was Paris a bit of an eye-opener in the sense of how international Bulls Nation actually is? You know,
yes.
Experience the game with international fans.
It was. I wasn't surprised to see that. Whatever, Accor Arena, right? That was the name of the stadium.
Yeah.
I wasn't surprised to see it filled, not only to capacity with just passionate international NBA fans at large, but I was not surprised to see it 85-15 Bulls fans versus Pistons fans. I mean, I expected that because the Pistons did not have a team at any point. Credit to the bad boys, credit to the, Ben Wallace, Chauncey Billups 2014 that, shocked the world and won that title. They have not had a team in their franchise history that captivated not just American basketball fans and American sports fans, but globally. Michael Jordan, Scottie Pippen, and the 90s Bulls are why people like yourselves who have never lived in Chicago are diehard Bulls fans. They made the world fall in love with basketball. And then not just them playing for the Bulls, but MJ and Scottie being a part of that dream team in Barcelona in 92, which was a huge expansion for the popularity of the NBA across the globe. So it wasn't necessarily surprising to see that many Bulls fans in Paris, so many hundreds and thousands of miles away from Chicago, but it was really cool to be immersed in it in a physical way, as opposed to our day-to-day, which is interacting with Bulls fans from all over the world on Twitter, in the live comments of our shows that we do, people saying, hey, I'm tuning in from the Philippines, or I'm tuning in from Brazil, or I'm tuning in from the UK. It's always cool to get those reminders that there are Bulls fans everywhere that just want to talk to each other and share each other's opinions and ideas about this team we all love together. Doing it in person in Paris was probably the coolest thing I've ever done as a Bulls fan.
Yeah. Obviously, a bit closer to home, you had Bulls Fest this off-season. Was it that? Did you go last year, or was that your first time?
No, I didn't get to go last year because last year they scheduled it Labor Day weekend. And I, like many people, have family plans around the Labor Day weekend holiday. A lot of people go out of town. I was out of town hanging out with my family that weekend, so I missed it. And I think hopefully the Bulls and their team that organized Bulls Fest figured it out that a lot of people who live in Chicago and would like to go to Bulls Fest leave Chicago for Labor Day weekend, and so they should switch it. They ended up switching it. They moved it to earlier on in the month of August, so we were able to go. And shout out to Bulls PR. They were very nice to us and accommodating, and let us come and set up a little makeshift studio with a tent for the day. And they gave us access to Mark Eversley, the GM. They gave us access to Javon Carter, the hometown kid who signed with the Bulls in free agency earlier this summer. So it was great to have that sort of that access to not just getting to go experience Bulls Fest, but to be welcomed and be a part of it as representatives of the Bulls community and what we do at CHGO. And I mean, everything about it was just so fun. Like, shout out to the guys who were rocking the dunk contest. It was incredibly entertaining. Honestly, it was better than most of the NBA dunk contests I've seen in recent All-Star weekends. Bulls legends of the past were there mingling, and we got to see other Bulls content makers, members of the Bulls content community. Some of the people from the Nothing But Bull podcast, Derek Briscoe, Melissa, obviously the queen of Bulls Twitter, Ramina, she was there. Got to see her. Got to see Hayes and Pat, from Chicago Bulls Central, and what they do together, hosting Locked On Bulls, Dave and I's former platform. So it was just really cool. It was just a great experience, and it was nice to just have a fun, beautiful Chicago summer day where Bulls fans gathered, and we weren't really stressing out about the season up ahead. Like, it was still far enough down the road that we're like, let's just enjoy being Bulls fans together, and that's what it was.
Yeah, I mean, you say he wasn't really stressing out on the podcast that went out after it. He seems quite stressed about not getting your beers, and we suggested to Big Dave last time that maybe you should have had a word with Dan Moriarty about getting you a little chiller in your setup so that it was stocked with beers.
Yeah, honestly, that's probably what I should have done. And shout out to Dan Moriarty too. A fellow UK member, just like you guys, and made his way over to Chicago and has been working with the Bulls for a while now. Just the nicest guy. Has a cool backstory of sports fandom, and did an incredible job. And he gave a lot of credit to the people who, he said did most of the heavy lifting, organizing an event with, such a large undertaking to make Bulls Fest happen. And it was a great success. He's a great guy. And I mean, I was a little salty that the Goose Island beer tent was not like within my direct line of sight while we were sitting there doing a show. And it was a hot day. Like, Chicago in mid to late August can get unpleasantly warm for those of us who are more accustomed to the colder parts of Chicago's seasonal weather. So it was a hot day, and all I wanted was an icy cold Goose Island, and I couldn't find one. But shout out to Emma, who's one of our new social media interns. She eventually did track down some Goose Islands for us later that day when we were done with our interview. So, if I have to wait until the day's work is done to crack my first Goose Island, then, I have to make my peace with that. As opposed to in the studio sometimes where I'll just crack one and Dave will crack one while we're sitting there doing a show.
Yeah, it's not a bad job when you get to drink beer while you're doing it, right?
It's really not. I mean, even the bad days at that gig are pretty good days.
So when Dave was, like we mentioned, Dave was on with us recently just a couple of weeks ago. We had a great chat with him with some good fun. And one of the things that came up was about the retiring of jerseys. And obviously Joakim is one that I'm sure you'd love to see swinging in the rafters. But the thing is, the Bulls are, notoriously tight in retiring numbers. So, I think it's a given. Exactly. There's only 4. And I think it's a given that the next one, if there will be a next one, will be Derek. Obviously, you'd like to see Joakim, and we've mentioned as well, Dennis Rodman is another one we'd like to see, but we just don't know whether it will or whether it won't happen. But there are other ways, I suppose, to honour players. So what we were saying was, if they can't use Joakim's number in the rafters, is there another way you'd like to see them honour Joakim at the stadium?
Well, I mean, in some ways they already have, and I appreciate the Bulls for doing what they have done. They had an honorary night for Joakim towards the beginning of last season. I think it was when it was a Bulls-Knicks game. So, in that, like, Tibbs was there, Derrick Rose was there because it was a Bulls-Knicks game. And Joakim got, a little video tribute, some of his former teammates that they played on the Jumbotron at the United Center. And then, of course, everybody, like, he stood up and acknowledged the crowd. The United Center crowd obviously gave him a standing ovation, one of many that he's deserved for everything he's done for the Bulls. And they also brought him in last year as an official ambassador for the team, which, is a position that has been held by some of Bulls fans' favorites over the years. Scottie Pippen used to be an ambassador, Horace Grant. Tony Kukoc still is to some capacity. Shout out to him. Happy belated birthday. I was like, I think he turned 55. I was like, oh my gosh, I'm old. Tony Kukoc is 55. But yet, like, I still think, and this is just my biased opinion that I've never been ashamed of or afraid to admit, I still think he needs to be honored more by the organization, and not just for things he's done for them, but for things he's done for the city of Chicago and continues to do for the city of Chicago. I don't care if they are stingy about retiring jersey numbers. I know they are. Stop it. And even if you are stingy, acknowledge the fact that some people deserve their numbers to be hanging up there. I don't know what ridiculously high standards you're setting, but Derrick Rose and Joakim Noah both deserve to have their numbers hanging from the rafters. Like, no offense to Torrey Craig, who we learned last week is going to be wearing 13 for the Bulls this upcoming season, but he should not be wearing that number. Absolute offense intended to Tony Bradley. He should never have been allowed to wear that number. It's a disgrace.
Well, in fairness, there was an attempt made to get him out of the building at one point. I mean, he was lifted off the court.
Yeah. much appreciation and respect to Steven Adams for doing that.
Yeah.
Kicking Tony Bradley out the club. But yeah, I mean, some teams do like a ring of honor thing in their stadiums without actually like retiring the number and allowing other players to wear. Whatever. I feel like at a certain point that loses its significance. Just acknowledge the fact that Derek and Joakim both meant a hell of a lot to Bulls fans. They still do. And I mean, what more do you want from this guy who's not a Chicago native, who left the team years ago, retired from the league years ago, and is still here in Chicago, has been in Chicago a lot this summer, running a charity organization to help the youth of this city. I mean, in addition to his accolades, a two-time All-Star, a Defensive Player of the Year, what more do you want from this man before you show him that deserved respect of retiring his number? Yeah.
Well, you won't hear any argument from us anyway. Actually, one of the things that came up, when we were talking about this with Dave, was we think kind of the time has passed now. It's kind of gone too long for the likes of Dennis Rodman. But what we were saying was, I don't know if Dave mentioned this to you already, but to have a statue or a bust of Dennis somewhere in the stadium, but with like kind of a screen or something built into the hairline so that you can change the color of the hair.
I like it. And like the giant dome that they just made in Las Vegas, and they can make it look like a million different things. And it was a giant basketball during Summer League. Just have like a rotating. I'd love that idea. Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. So we're trying to get as many people on board with this idea as we can, so we can bring it to the Bulls organization and see, can they do something about it? You know, and maybe while we're at it, we can push Joakim and Derek all at the same time.
I mean, I've said this to Dave before. Like, I want them to build a statue of Joakim Noah. And I understand if you're going to build a statue for Joakim, you probably also have to build one for Derek. I get that. So fine, make Derek a statue too. But goddamn it, I want them to have a statue of Joakim Noah somewhere in the United Center.
Yeah, that would be great.
Now Big Dave's got his new job with the Bulls, he can maybe get an inside information.
That's right. Yeah, he was unofficially hired by Mark Eversley when we did that interview with him at Bulls Fest.
Before we actually talk about, obviously, current Bulls, you start on last night's episode, or yesterday's episode as it is for you, you started your breakdown of the Eastern Conference.
Mm-hmm.
So have you actually got a league pass team? And is there another player in the league that excites you, intrigues you, ready for this season coming?
Well, so I don't know if it qualifies as a league pass team, but the Western Conference team that I have fully adopted, because I feel dirty even league pass cheering for any other Eastern Conference teams. I can't do it. I am a Bulls fan, 140%. I am a Bulls fan. All other teams in the East can F off and die forever. Western Conference teams, you don't got to worry about it until you get to the finals. And let's be honest, as Bulls fans, that hasn't been a great concern for the last 2.5 decades. I fell in love with the Denver Nuggets. Watching not only their run to the championship this past season, but even before that, the incredible run they made in the bubble playoffs, watching some of those performances from Jamal Murray, who is honestly one of my favorite players to watch. And one of my other favorite players to watch in the league right now is Nikola Jokic. I mean, that is an incredible team. And the way that they dealt with the fact that Murray had a serious injury that he had to sit out for a while and then come back from. And they honestly were just so overlooked throughout large stretches of last season by the national NBA media coverage, because they weren't as, they weren't LeBron and the Lakers. And what we have to talk about, the different way LeBron tied his shoes today on, NBA Today, and whatever dysfunction was going on with James Harden or Kyrie Irving or any of the other, unhappy NBA stars in certain markets that the national media thinks deserves more attention than a small market team that didn't have any drama, like the Denver Nuggets. But if you genuinely appreciate beautiful basketball, then the Nuggets were the best watch in the NBA last season. And they proved it from start to finish. So, yeah. And obviously there is the other factor of one of our sister networks is DNVR over there in Denver under the All City Network umbrella. And I love the people over there. I think they're incredible at what they do. I am appreciative that they decided to grow their network and bring it over to Chicago and entrust us to do similar things, providing content for our fellow Bulls fans. And I am so happy for them because that Nuggets team is a lot of fun. And it's nice if you can't be the sports fan enjoying the ultimate triumphs of your teams, aka winning championships. The next best thing is being genuinely happy for sports fans of other teams because you acknowledge their passion as sports fans and you also like who they are as people.
Yeah, I guess it's a completely different vibe over there as well, seeing as they've not long won, obviously, the Stanley Cup and now winning the Lowry.
And now they got Deion Sanders in the Colorado Buffalo football team just making headlines. They're off to a 3-0 start. It's really good to be a Colorado sports fan right now. Chicago, not so much.
I guess you'll be hoping for not as much success for the Philly brand of it as well.
It's going to be real tough to, like I said, Eastern Conference teams generally, no. Also, I'm going to try to not bring my bias into it when we get a chance to meet our new, Philly network colleagues at some point down the road. I've just always had a negative bias against Philadelphia sports fans in general, and for good cause. There is plenty of proof on record of them behaving abhorrently as far as the average sports fan and how they are expected to behave. Philly has always been on the bottom of that ladder. But they are passionate. I'll give them that. As far as, American cities and their sports, fans go, you cannot deny that Philly sports fans are passionate.
Yeah, absolutely. Like Bulls fans and Chicago fans, they're all passionate too. But bringing it back to Chicago for a second, going into this season, well, I personally, anyway, I see us kind of coming in as underdogs this year. We're expected to not do particularly well, middle of the pack towards the bottom end of the middle of the pack. And I actually think that there's a bit of an underestimation about the potential in this Bulls team. But I think being an underdog also suits Chicago teams, particularly the Bulls. And how do you think that they're actually going to perform compared to the expectations, which, like I say, are reasonably low?
Yeah, and I agree that there is some benefit to being overlooked. Maybe teams taking you lightly gives you an upper hand coming in if you have a good game plan and have done your homework and maybe take advantage of teams not giving you the respect and maybe taking the matchup with you that night in a packed NBA schedule lightly. And I agree that I think by and large the Bulls are getting overlooked. Some of it I think might be valid. They basically ran back the roster from last year, add a couple of contributing pieces in Javon Carter and Torrey Craig, who I do expect to be meaningfully in Billy Donovan's rotation this season and weren't last season. So there is a window for modest improvement while still by and large being a run-of-the-mill, middle-of-the-pack team by most people's expectations. As far as whether or not I see them exceeding those expectations, I mean, if you want to talk about, win projection, current Vegas odds, last I looked, have the Bulls at 37.5 wins, which would be, 2 or 3 wins fewer than their 40-42 record last season.
Yeah.
But they got better on paper. At least modestly, they got better on paper. And DeMar has proven that he still performs at a high level at his age. Vooch still performs at a high level at his age. So I don't know how the win projection went down. Other than maybe just other teams getting more exciting offseason coverage because their moves were bolder or more interesting, headline grabbing. people have started asking me for my prediction for the team this season, and I am somewhere in the yes, I think there can be improvement, but I only see the improvement going so far. If they manage to win a few more close games compared to losing lots of close games last year, if they don't give away bad losses to bad teams repeatedly as they did last year, I can see them being a mid-40s win team. I'm looking at like 43-39 right now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, when we had you on last year, obviously there was all the will he, won't he with Lonzo. You know, is he going to come back? Is he not? So nobody knew what that Bulls team was going to be. Obviously, this year they've addressed that problem before it's even become a problem by obviously applying for the DPE, bringing in Javon Carter, and the way things went at the back end of last year, apart from obviously missing out on the playoffs in the end, but to me that gives a better sense of optimism because we saw what we do with a legit point guard, obviously in Pat Bev. A fully fit Zach after Christmas was just, he had his own little March Madness, didn't he, as well, which was just, so if putting that piece and then obviously a fully fit Zach, a fully fit DeMar, surely we're not going to lose more games than we did last year. You kind of expect that win percentage or win rate to go up. And that's why, the ESPN rankings or whatever it was, where they said it was going to be 37. To me, it's like we haven't got majorly better, but we've done the little things that do improve, and hopefully they improve the pieces we've already got, especially Javon. If he can be, whether he comes off the bench or he starts or whichever way it goes, he's somebody that's not scared to shoot the three. So when DeMar goes up ISO and he's maybe looking for somebody, he's now got somebody there that is going to shoot the three. And I guess the question is, what do you think is more important for this team now? Is it Zach and DeMar step up a level? We get Zach back to being all-star Zach, potential superstar Zach, or the likes of Kobe and P. Will make that step and bridge that gap that was quite obvious last season?
That's a really, really good question. My answer today, 2 weeks removed from training camp starting, is I think it is more crucial for the other role players on this team to step up and provide more. Not to say that I think Zach can't take another step or even a mini step in how effective he is on an NBA court. There will always be the Bulls fans who trash him as being an empty calorie scorer and a guy who doesn't play defense. And I have honestly no interest in talking to Bulls fans who repeatedly just throw that into any conversation because I see it by and large as misguided and not telling the whole story. As you mentioned, after he knocked off the rust from his offseason surgery, basically December on, Zach was putting up all NBA numbers, like third team all NBA consideration numbers, certainly all-star numbers. DeMar's efficiency fell off a bit from year one to year two of his Bulls career, but you had to expect that because his year one of his Bulls career, he was breaking records previously held by Wilt Chamberlain as far as his efficiency as a field goal shooter, but he was a wing and not a over 7 foot tall center who just scored 60 points a game. He was still real damn good. He made the all-star team again, deservedly so. While I do hope that Billy can throw some new things into their offensive system and their offensive sets, a team that finished 24th in the NBA in offensive rating last season, one of the ways I think they can do that is if you get more willing and capable contributions from some of these role players like Kobe, and credit to him. He had a great season last year, finished really strong. Glad they brought him back. Patrick Williams continuing to shoot at a high level and also hopefully adding more aggression to his offensive game, more physicality to his offensive game while still being a 40% three-point shooter and maybe even upping that three-point attempt rate even more as he did from 2 seasons ago to last season. I just think that for this team to reach their ceiling, they need to get like B to B plus contributions from these role guys as opposed to C+ to B- contribution from these role guys, because the stars are limited in the ways that they are limited. And I think by and large, there's not a whole lot you could do about that.
Yeah. And obviously the defense side of things is where the obvious criticism always comes in. You know, you've got Zach and DeMar who are contributing practically all of the offense really for us. And then they don't really contribute much on the defensive end. So it's the players around them then that you expect to fill those gaps in behind them defensively in order for them to be those offensive players without having to worry so much about the defense, which I think is something that they've thought about when they're bringing in somebody like Javon Carter and Torrey Craig, because they are known for being defensively minded players as well as being able to provide some 3-point shooting as well. So hopefully it will all fall a bit together more so than some people think.
Yeah, and I think that's the other big thing about whether or not the Bulls can exceed where they were last season. Their offense obviously needs to get better. Mm-hmm. While they're working on getting a more difficult to guard on a nightly basis offense, can they maintain a surprising top 5 defense from last season? And obviously, most credit in the world to Alex Caruso, deserving of those first team all defense honors he got last year. Maybe one of the most underappreciated players in the NBA, honestly, and on an absolute steal of a contract. But Javon Carter also brings quality perimeter defense. Torrey Craig is a capable wing defender. Patrick Williams, for all the yelling and shouting Bulls fans do about how he's not like a 20 points per game scorer yet, which, again, misguided, just like the criticisms of Zach LaVine, in my opinion.
Yeah,
you have to give Pat credit for the quality of defense he played. All 82 games last season. He played all 82 games, and he had some of the toughest defensive assignments every night. And I still think there's huge room for improvement for Pat to go from being a capable nightly defender and contributor to a net positive defense to a all-defensive team candidate kind of player. So for all the shouting that gets done about Zach's defensive weaknesses, DeMar's defensive weaknesses, Vooch, oh my gosh, the Vooch haters in Bulls there. Oh my God, he can't play defense. He's not a rim protector. He's not a shot block. Cool. Last I checked, one of the 3 best defensive rebounding percentages across the entire NBA last season. The man is a double-double machine. He plays decent enough defense in their system to allow them to have had a top 5 defense last year. Right. If the Bulls, with these added defensive pieces like Carter and Craig, with the continued defensive improvements of not only Patrick Williams, but Kobe White, who made great defensive strides last season, they can be an even better defense this season than they were last season.
Right. And with that leads in nicely, actually, talking about Javon and Kobe, P. Will and Craig. Who starts? Javon or Kobe? P. Will and Craig.
It's the $1 million question, isn't it? We're going to ask Eli Schuster of Bleacher Nation Bulls that very question when we do a show with him later this afternoon. I don't know. I want to see both through our, whatever it is, 5 preseason games. I want to see what it looks like. Mm-hmm. I am leaning right now towards really embracing Kobe White, 6th man of the year candidate. I really like the sound of that, and I like how I see that working for the Bulls this season. I also think that if you can allow Kobe and Pat to develop even more chemistry this season, and if they're staggered, if they're both coming off the bench, you stagger them. If one of them starting and the other's not. But I honestly, I want to see what both look like. I want to see Carter in the starting lineup and Kobe. I want to see Pat in the starting lineup, and I want to see Torrey Craig in the starting lineup. No idea. My hope is that Billy gives us a chance to look at both of those things, and hopefully he makes the right decision on which one gets them out of the gate on the right foot this season. Not to say that those adjustments can't happen as you progress through the season. We saw Billy make adjustments to his starting lineup many times last season. Moving Io in and out, moving Alex Caruso in and out, moving Pat in and out. So I know it probably sounds like a cop-out answer, but I'm leaning towards start Javon, bring Kobe as your 6th man. I want to see Patrick Williams earn the starting spot over Torrey Craig. I don't know if he will, but I want to see him earn it. And regardless of what happens, that's where I'm leaning, and I want to see all options in the handful of preseason games we get.
Yeah, I mean, my sort of feeling on it is it's going to be matchup dependent. You know, like there'll be some matchups that's better for Kobe, whereas sometimes you might need that more defensive dog from Javon, depending who it is. Obviously, he's matched up against, and the same with P. Will. You know, we mention P. Will a lot because Neill's a big P. Will stan, and it's like I've always said, if you with him, like you say, everyone wants him to be this 20 a night scorer, but sometimes he's more effective at the other end. You know, if it's going against Giannis or someone like that, you'd rather P. Will against Giannis than Caruso getting run over and missing the next 5 games. You know, so to me, the whole thing of being a starter, yeah, it's good to have on their CV as such, but they can be just as effective coming off the bench anyway. And, you know, obviously, Torrey Craig could potentially be a starter. He never really, until last year, started that many games. You know, so, and he's not, everyone thinks he's a veteran of the league, but he's only been in the league 7 years. And he's sort of moved around and all that sort of stuff. So, my hope with Javon and Torrey Craig is that they bring on Kobe and P. Will. And like you say, you want P. Will to fight for that starting spot and realise he's now actually got some legit competition for it as well. And it's not Alex Caruso. You know, no disrespect to him, but, you know, obviously we know you put Caruso in and you get Caruso basically. Doesn't matter where he's 1 to, well, probably 5, knowing Billy. So, yeah, to me, I think too much emphasis gets put on who is starting because, you know, you could start Kobe and pull him after 2 minutes to put Javon in just to mix things up and vice versa. But, yeah, obviously people then say you're not getting that continuity when you're constantly changing your starters.
Careful of that C word, Matt. That's triggering for Bulls fans these days.
Exactly. I do it just to wind Neill up half of the time. But, you know, surely they're all that used to playing with each other now that it doesn't matter who's on the court to start and who comes off the bench. As you say, Ayo coming in, you know, and obviously it's a big year for Ayo as well this year. You know, it's kind of feels like a prove it year again for him. I know obviously he's your guy at CHGO now. Were you disappointed with how he went last year?
I mean, I think you'd be lying to yourself if you said you weren't disappointed with Ayo's second season because of how encouraging his rookie year was as a guy who was a second round pick. And some people saw what he did in a 3-year career, you know, with the Illini at the collegiate level and thought he was deserving of being a first round pick. And he just kind of slid down to second round and the Bulls were surprised he was still available and napped him up. And then obviously silver lining of the Lonzo injury in Ayo's rookie year was him getting a chance and getting inserted into the starting lineup and really excelling in a lot of ways that were surprising. Had some big moments and some really epic, fun, entertaining games that ended as Bulls victories. And because of that, Bulls fans had, you know, just starry-eyed visions of what Ayo in year 2 was going to be, knowing or at least fearing that we were going to be without Lonzo again, that Ayo was, you know, everyone was pointing at him as you're this team's starting point guard now. That is what ended up happening, and I think he kind of, I mean, regressed might not even be fair, but he struggled. He struggled with a lot being placed on his shoulders as a second-year player who was not expecting to suddenly be thrown into this starting role. And I think, you know, some of it is just devil in the details kind of stuff. I think, you know, his mechanics still need some work on both ends of the floor. That's to be expected. He's still a young player. The biggest concern to me is, can you find a shot? Because he knocked down big shots his rookie year, and then for long stretches of his second season was just ice cold trying to knock down his outside shots. we know if you want to be a backcourt player in the NBA who gets minutes, you have to have a three. You just have to. You're kind of useless if you don't. So I still have hope for Ayo being a big, long, capable defender in his NBA career. I have seen glimpses of promise as a floor general, and especially some of the plays he makes in transition are really exciting and really eye-opening. He's got to develop a shot. He's got to cut down on the turnovers. Two things that you say a lot about young NBA players.
And Bulls.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So is there any specific Bulls player then maybe leading you into the answer here after talking about Ayo, but is there a Bulls player in particular that you're going to be driving the train for this season? Like, we know that, well, I don't know if you're aware, but Matt is very much on the same train and has been for the last kind of couple of years as Big Dave, which is the Kobe train. I'm desperately trying to steer the P. Will train, but it keeps jumping off the tracks every now and then. What about yourself? Is there any player in particular that you're kind of rooting for?
Well, I mean, I'm surprised. I thought Matt was still rooting for Javonte Green to make his way back to this team and keep driving that train.
I see with the Bulls.
I see your little message down there.
I've got a theory on that one, but
oh yeah,
yeah. Obviously, with Carlick Jones, he's guaranteed from January next year.
Mm-hmm.
Javonte, after his injury, we've not seen anything of him. There's been no workout videos, no pro runs, no nothing. So to me, the injury seems worse than what it is, or what we was told.
Yeah.
If you go on the Bulls app, it's the roster part of it is actually updated with Quentin Jackson, Henry Drell, Heidegger, however you say it.
Yeah.
And one name that's still on there is Javonte, and he's also not re-signed anywhere else. So I'm kind of thinking of Bulls keeping him around, because I've seen on his Insta that he's in Chicago.
Yeah.
He was at the Hard Bros pro runs as a spectator. So are they waiting for him to prove his fitness, and then they're going to waive Carlick and bring him back in?
I mean, I hope for your happiness that happens. And honestly, I am not as big of a Javonte cheerleader as you are, but man, I love watching Javonte Green play basketball. That dude is so many things he does on a basketball court. You can't believe your eyes when you see him do them. So I hope that he comes back from this injury that kept him out for most of last season. I hope he gets another shot in the NBA. It would be awesome if that were with the Bulls, because I really like him. But to answer your question, Neill, as far as who I'm cheerleading for the most this season, and yes, I understand if your answer is Pat. I understand if your answer is Kobe. And I would like to see those guys take big developmental steps this season, because I think that is very important for where this Bulls team goes or doesn't go in the years to come. But right now, this season and for the next couple of years, the most important name, unquestionably, is Zach LaVine, because he's the man you just signed to the richest contract in Bulls franchise history. And I'm not complaining. If you guys are regular listeners and viewers, you know that I have been a defender of the Bulls making the obvious decision to tender that max contract offer to Zach and being happy that he signed it.
Yeah.
Bulls fans who say, along with empty calorie scorer, what's the next thing out of their mouth? Not a max player. Bullshit. I don't know if I'm allowed to swear on y'all's spot.
Yeah, no,
I call bullshit. That is, if you look at some of the contracts that were signed this summer, we were just talking about the Jaylen Brown contract in our episode yesterday, previewing the Celtics season and reviewing their offseason. Zach's contract, go back and look at it again. Go back and look at it again after this summer's max contracts were signed and see if you still feel as bad as you do about it. That being the case, me still being on board with Zach LaVine being this team's highest paid player, the franchise face, the best thing we can see, even for those of us who are skeptical still of can he be the best player on a legitimate contending team, is Zach LaVine going from being a really, really good player to a bona fide great player. And credit to him, this man has made 2 all-star teams. If it weren't for the early season rust, the offseason injury, we're talking about a guy who would have 3 consecutive all-star selections coming into this year. he has done a lot to elevate his game to being at an all-star level. Can he fine-tune some of the things about his game that drive us Bulls fans crazy? The head-scratching turnovers, the questionable shot selection, giving us just a little bit more on the defensive end. If he does just a handful of those things and we see a plus version of Zach LaVine for the majority of this upcoming season, that's the thing I will be cheering for the loudest.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that might actually answer some of the next questions I've got. Obviously, very conscious of your time. So last year we asked you the same questions, and so far this year we've got Casey Johnson's receipts and Big Dave's receipts on the same ones. Before I get into the CHGO ones, Neill's got one that's more CHGO related.
Okay.
Yeah. Now, I'm aware of the fact that apparently you're going to be shaking this up a little bit for this season, but we'll still go on the previous season, shall we say, wording. And who do you see being this upcoming season's Goon of the Year?
Wow. I mean, the two leading candidates would have to be Dalen Terry and Andre Drummond, right? I mean, Dalen Terry, the young guy who's still trying to earn his way into Billy's rotation, but is the just quintessential star teammate, the rah-rah teammate who you saw his rookie year getting up out of his seat, getting the other teammates riled up after the Bulls were making big plays. The level of emotion that comes out of Dalen Terry when he's sitting on the bench watching games is something that is a very admirable and endearing quality. And then when he does get out on the floor occasionally, you put those things together, and it led to him having some serious goon of the night candidacies. And then Drummond, for good reasons and bad reasons, right? It was like a nightly candidate to get Big Dave's Goon Award. So people somewhat surprised that Drummond ended up sticking around when some people thought maybe he was going to head out with that option he had in his contract. He is back. We'll see how he fits into Billy's rotation. My guess is that it's similar to last year, where there's some nights when Drummond plays and some nights when he doesn't, depending on matchups, like you were saying, Matt. But yeah, I would have to say that Dalen and Andre are the two odds leaders for that. If you were to put that award over an entire season, who wins the most of them, it's got to be Dalen or Andre.
Yeah, well, Big Dave actually went for Javon Carter with that one.
Ooh, I do like that. A newcomer and a guy he's definitely got some goon stuff on his resume too.
Right.
So on to the CHGO ones. Obviously, we did put it out to a vote at the end of the season to actually see what everyone else thought as well. Last year we asked you for the ranking and the Bulls record as well, and you gave quite political answers. You kind of answered them without actually answering them. Ranking wise, you said there'd be 7 to 10, so you were spot on, kind of.
Nailed it at 10. Nailed it.
Record, you went no more than 46. Obviously, going off the previous year.
Mm-hmm.
Got that one in a roundabout way.
Yeah.
And then onto the players. Obviously, we're not going to ask. We've not been asking for ranking and records and that this year. We're just going on the player ones. So, Bulls MVP last year, you went for Zach, and that was how it voted as well. Zach got it. So this year, who do you reckon for MVP or Bulls MVP?
Give me Zach again. We all know what DeMar has proven through these two seasons. The vet on this team, the guy who gets some big buckets when they need big buckets. But honestly, if you compare, DeMar's clutch minute scoring next to Zach's, not just this past season, but the past two seasons, they are damn close together. It's just those clutch situation turnovers that has, Bulls fans pulling their hair out about Zach. If he can cut down on those. But that's the other big thing hanging over Bulls fans' heads right now after seeing them run back this core, signing Vooch to a new deal, Kobe to a new deal, Io to a new deal, not making any major trades in the offseason or at last season's deadline. oh dear God, are we about to sign DeMar to an extension? As much as I appreciate everything that DeMar has done for us these past 2 seasons and respect the way he has kept his game at such a high level in these twilight seasons of his NBA career, no. Personally, no, I don't want them signing DeMar to a multi-year extension, and therefore think that the MVP of this team, as I was somewhat, alluding to earlier, as far as who I'm cheering for hardest this season, has to be Zach LaVine. Has to be.
Yeah, we haven't actually given ours yet, but I think last year we both went for Zach as well. And, you do want to see him take that sort of next step and be that guy, basically.
Yeah.
Next one, Bulls most improved. Now, last year you went for P. Will, and the result of the vote was Kobe, understandably.
Yeah.
So, who do you reckon it's going to be this year?
Oh, I mean, I want to say P. Will again because I'm okay with the fact that I was wrong last year, and Kobe made, I think, greater strides in his game than Pat did in his, respectively. Kobe got his new deal after proving that he made significant strides in his game at the end of his rookie deal. That is now where Pat is. He's in a contract year, the last year of his rookie contract. This is a guy you drafted 4th overall a few years ago, and we see these glimpses of his potential. And on a nightly basis, we kind of look the other way while he's playing very serviceable defense and complain about the fact that he's not a bigger part of this team's offense when this team's offense has Zach DeMar Vooch, when, those are the guys he's playing with in the starting lineup most nights. Now you are, not just worrying about DeMar and an extension. You're also worried about whether or not this team should be signing Pat to a multi-year extension. Can he prove that he earns that? So, yes, that is who I am crossing my fingers like crazy and hoping is this team's most improved player award winner this season, because damn it, Pat needs to be that guy. He needs to be.
Yeah, I think that's the way most people went last year, and I can see it being the way people predict this year as well, to be fair. And the last one, the Bulls unsung hero. Now, last year you went for Vooch, and you give quite good reasoning for it as well. And the reasoning you gave come true, but in the vote, I think it went to Kobe again. Closely followed by Caruso, I think, and Vooch. So, yeah, unsung hero for this year.
Wow. Yeah, I still feel good about my answer of Vooch last season. The man played 82 games. He was, somewhere in the top 5 in the NBA in double-doubles. He got his 3-point percentage up from what it was the year prior to a respectable, mid-30s number that I was asking for. I wouldn't have any trouble giving Vooch the same answer to that, underappreciated hero guy. But, also, does Caruso even qualify if he just won a league award last season? I was going to say Caruso sounds like a good answer too, but dude's coming into this year first team all defense right there in his trophy case. So, unheralded hero. Because I'm guaranteeing you we're going to have to listen to Bulls fans bitch about him in our comments every post-game night. I'm doubling down on Vooch. No one appreciates this man to the level that they should. They had a top 5 defense last season with him as their starting center for all 82 games. The man had, nights where he would pour it in because he was hot from 3. And either way, whether or not he's cold or hot from 3, he's finding a way to get you 18 and 12 every night. Every night. And no one appreciates him. I do. Now, did the Bulls overpay him for 3 years and $60 million more? Yeah, they did. He wasn't getting that on the free agent market this summer. Irrelevant. Now that he's back, I want to see him continue to be the guy that nobody else seems to appreciate, who goes out there and does his job every damn night.
Yeah, so you're following Bulls' lead and doubling down and using the C word.
Yeah.
Same as last year.
I didn't use it. I am exercising it.
It was implied.
It's implied.
But yeah, I mean that's all I've got. Obviously, we are getting time. Don't know if Neil's got anything else quickly.
No, we're very conscious that you're under a time frame, so we will let you get out of here. But just before we do, apart from a big thank you and give you the opportunity to let everybody know where they can get a hold of you, one quick question for you: who gets the more views of the C Red UK podcast, you or Dave?
Oh, Dave. Oh, not the joke. No, that's not. I wouldn't even expect it to be close. Yeah, I made my piece years ago that Bulls fans, Bulls Nation at large, far more gravitates to Big Dave than to me. He's the nice guy. I'm the asshole. People seem to appreciate the way that we bounce off of each other and work together, and I'm glad that they do. Shout out to Will the Goat and Mark. They've been great additions to the chemistry that Dave and I have had for years, doing what we do at CHGO. But yes, who would I expect to get more views? Come on, everybody knows the answer is Big Dave. Everybody loves Big Dave, and half of Bulls fans hate me, and I'm okay with that. But no, everyone loves Big Dave. If people are watching me, half of them are hate watching, and half of them are watching because they actually, don't find me to be someone they can't stand. But yeah, you can follow along with us. We're CHGO_Bulls on Twitter. Subscribe to our CHGO Sports YouTube channel. I'm Bulls_Peck. We'll have pre and post all season long, just like last year and the tail end of the year prior. And couldn't be more excited to get a new season started.
Absolutely. And as Neill said, obviously, thank you for giving us your time. Took some organising at the end, but we got there.
Damn time zones.
Yeah.
Thank you guys so much for having me. Honestly, I love what you guys are doing for our fellow Bulls fans, our international Bulls fans. You are a huge part of Bulls fans in the world of social media, international Bulls fandom. We, of course, appreciate y'all's support for what we do so much. And you guys have been big supporters of ours over the years, and we love what you guys do. So, we're happy to come and talk it up Bulls with you guys anytime.
Appreciate that.
And we'll be on your live later on as well.
Come through Chicago. You guys are due. You're up. Okay.
For sure.
Hopefully.
All right, y'all. I'll see you in the comments. Okay.
Here at C Red UK, we are trying to raise awareness for Andy's Man Club. Andy's Man Club is a non-profit charity that run peer groups for men to go and talk. They run on a Monday, 7 p.m. till 9 p.m. as well as online. And there is no cost to anybody, no cost to you, no cost to them. So yeah, just remember, Andy's Man Club, it's okay to talk. So yeah, hope you all enjoyed that chat with Peck. I know we did. Again, somebody that we could speak to all night. Obviously, we're very conscious of the time he's got. He's off to record his own stuff in the studio at CHGO, which we'll be in the lives for. Or I'll be in the lives for anyway, I'm assuming.
I'll probably be editing our own.
Yeah, editing this one and getting it out. Now, on the last few episodes, we've been running our Bulls trivia. Shout out Clem and Troy, who once again got the answers. And my question on the last one was, who is the only Bulls centre to ever record a triple-double consisting of points, rebounds and blocks? Your choices were Artis Gilmore, Pau Gasol, Ben Wallace, or Joakim Noah. The answer, Joakim Noah, which we were going to ask Peck the questions, but we ran out of time. I'm sure he'd have got that one, or he'd have just said Joakim Noah.
So my question from the last episode was, which 3 Western Conference teams did the Bulls beat to win their first 3 championships? So the first team they beat was the Lakers. The second team that they beat was the Blazers. And the final team that they beat was the Phoenix Suns.
Yeah. And my question for tonight is, Chicago small forward and the original Bull, Jerry Sloan, was a noted collector and at one point amassed a collection of over 70 of what item? Stuffed and mounted deer heads, opponents' basketball jerseys, farm tractors, or bobblehead dolls?
Very good. And my question is, who led the Bulls in scoring in the 2007 and 2008 season? And see if you can answer it without looking it up.
So yeah, they're the questions. We are aiming to be back on Thursday, but by the time it's in your feeds, it'll probably be Friday.
Yeah, I'd say so.
Or we'll be here in the UK anyway, maybe not in America. So yeah, obviously we'll answer them then, hopefully, and give you some more. So yeah, like I say, thanks for listening. Hope you enjoyed the chat with Mr. Peck. I know we did. Don't forget to leave us some comments and share it and all the good stuff. And as usual, I've been Matt. You can find me on Twitter at MattCRedUK, and you can find us on all the socials at CRedUK.
And you can find me on Twitter at Neill CRedUK. On behalf of us both from the Fans First Sports Network, thanks once again to everyone for tuning in. Whether you're watching or listening, please subscribe, rate and review, and give us a thumbs up on YouTube. A special thank you also to Peck. Thank you very much for joining us. We do appreciate the time you gave us, and it's always great fun talking Bulls with you. From Matt and myself, remember it's a Chicago Bulls thing wherever you are in the world. Until next time, see red people.
Percolator. It's time for the percolator. Percolator.